States, because there's tens of millions of people that speak Spanish in the United States, and then also elsewhere in the world. So talking about spreading your culture, Spanish did probably the best in terms of that. So Spanish explorers, we have to think about and talk about Ferdinand and Isabella. They were the king and queen in Spain who gave Christopher Columbus his job. They were a Catholic believing nation. They had the strongest navy in Europe, so they had the ability and the knowledge of how to sail and sail well. Sail well. That's hard to say. It's a tongue twister. Sail well. Yeah, I can't even say it. Rival with the Portuguese over Asian spices. Okay, so again, their biggest competitor is someone that they share a peninsula on. And again, if they're losing out on that piece of pie, what do they have to do? They have to maybe look elsewhere or better and faster ways to get there that the Portuguese don't know about. So here enters Christopher Columbus. And we don't really know when he was born, but we think he was born in 1451. Okay. So he was actually Italian. He was Italian born. Knowledgeable in several different languages, knew over 5 languages. We don't really know much about his family or even his childhood. We do know that he served as an apprentice and crew member on voyages as a teenager, so he had the experience and the knowledge of how to sail. Never owned any property for himself. He did marry once and had a son, but she later died when he was 35. Okay, and then he later moved to Spain because that was where work was. The Italian government did not want to really work with Christopher Columbus, and they paid dearly for it. In terms of, can you imagine that, right? If Columbus actually sailed for the Italians rather than the Spanish, maybe most of South America and North America would be speaking Latin today, and Latin wouldn't be a dead language. Right? Right? And just some of those decisions that were made actually ultimately affect our world today. So he sails west and to attempt to reach Asia. So his goal was to make it to Asia. Yeah, it didn't happen. He failed, right? He was getting graded for the objective, he would have failed. Right? But along the way, he discovers this new area. All right, so he actually thought the Earth was not as big as it was, which most people didn't think it was as big as it was. There are some mathematicians, considering what we know about the Earth, I actually think it's more this way. But he himself, as a sailor, thought that the Earth was smaller. Therefore, he thought he could go west and reach China before any other European country attempted to do that. Okay, so there was a new attempt. No one really sailed west at all. It was the unknown, and so he went into the unknown.
No, tell me.
And then into the unknown. All right. He went to the unknown, and he thought his voyage, since it was about 3,000 miles away, it would take 21 days, maybe at the most. And by the 21st day, and there was no land in sight, he's starting to worry. Okay. The king and queen did finance his voyage. They were his benefactor. Took the 3 boats, the Nina, the Pinta, the Santa Maria. 90 crew members. 4 of them were condemned to death, and 2 were converted Jews. Went 4 weeks without sight of land, right? That's 28 days, which was the longest time of that time to not have, just to be out on the open water without seeing land. So maybe it's a fail, but maybe it's also a world record too. The Santa Maria actually sunk in December, and then his voyage was actually around 32 weeks, 32 weeks long. So he ultimately made 4 trips. This is what he originally thought was China in the dark brown area. If you look up on the screen, you can kind of see Spain off to the right in the top right. He thought some of those islands over there were the Indies. However, if you look at the map, this is kind of what actually was there. Okay. So he was off on his calculations. So he made 4 journeys to the West Indies, or the New World. So he calls it the West Indies because he thought he was in the Indies. So naturally, he called the people Indians. Okay? See how there's a connection there? All right, we're making connections. I didn't know he landed on the new continent, where he just thought, hey, this is a place somewhere in the Indies that we really don't have documented. Never actually got to the United States. He was really close. I'll show you how close he got. He was really close to like South America and the mainland of South America, but the Portuguese actually had success there. Regarding natives as potential converts, so again, there was a mission field there. He became very wealthy in terms of getting 1/8 of all the findings in the New World. Came back a second voyage with over 17 vessels and 1,200 passengers. Along the way, enslaved 550 natives, and then sent them to Spain, while many of them died along the way. And the first recorded city, European city in the New World, was Santo Domingo in the Dominican Republic. So if you look here on the screen, you have a map of his voyage, and there's crossing points, and at all of his voyages, he ends up somewhere right around Santo Domingo. So the blue one is his first voyage. You see he kind of headed out straight, whether the prevailing winds brought him down. He then ended up landing there in Santo Domingo, modern day Puerto Rico. It's kind of interesting when you think about that is one of the first place Europeans had ever been, and yet Haiti and the Dominican Republic is one of the worst economies, the poorest country, not only in the Western Hemisphere, but almost in the world. It's kind of interesting to think of connection. By his third voyage, he kind of had it down, so he may be looking for different routes and more places to go, but kind of skipped right across and close to the coast of South America there, and then ultimately making himself his way back to kind of Santo Domingo. I think we've seen this one before, so we'll just keep going. Columbus has come under criticism in modern days, and you probably have heard about it, right? In terms of the treatment and his leadership to the native people. He was marooned in Jamaica for a year. Somebody would be like, hey, that wouldn't be that bad. Did have an untimely death in 1506, but there's no real documentation of where he's really buried. Some people claim that his body is in the DR, some in Cuba, some in Spain. Just uncertain for sure. And this is kind of a mausoleum or a place where people have claimed that this is the body, place of Columbus. The Taino of Hispaniola were the first natives driven into extinction by the Europeans. Words adopted by the Europeans include canoes, hurricane, barbecue, and even savannah. And then the kind of last slide we're going to deal with in terms of the legacy of Columbus, District of Columbia, Washington, D.C., Columbia. That is actually in reference to Columbus. Columbus, Ohio. Columbia, South Carolina. Columbus, Nebraska. Columbus Day, which people that oppose Columbus actually celebrate Indigenous Peoples Day on October 12th. There. again, that is kind of the legacy of Christopher Columbus. Is there any questions or thoughts there with what we've learned? Okay, just a few minutes left into class. Don't forget, tomorrow those Native American biographies are due. You'll turn those in. Otherwise, you can work on those or sit quietly